If your team size is really big out here, squash is very useful out there. Reason being, most of the projects they either use a fast forward if it's small or a squash if it's, let's say, really big out here. So it really helps you out to understand how exactly, let's say, the history is going around on this one. And for me, as let's say a developer or a lead out here, if I want to just check this out, I'll just click on this and say, okay, fine, this is done. And if I am really interested, I'll see what are the comments that we have made. I'll see what are the changes that we have made as a part of this particular pull request. This is sufficient. I don't need the entire history of development that happened on a feature branch out there. So that's the reason. Going back into that particular branching policy. Let's look at this. Limit merge types. It's telling Squash creates a linear history by condensing the source branch commits into a single new commit onto the target branch in the form of a pull request. So simply it's taking a pull request, considering that to be a single commit, and then hitting that particular branch. It makes a clean and a linear history. So the history is just like simple dots out here, but basic merge is a little confusing. Reason being, it takes everything and puts it forward out there as such. Let's look at one more thing, which is rebase and fast forward. Again, rebase and fast forward and rebase with commit merge will look very similar to squash, not used a lot. They are not really used a lot out here. So let's look at that. Let's try rebase and fast forward on a dev2 branch. So let's go into our, let's say, pull request again. Let's create a new pull request from feature basic to dev2. I'll say this is rebase, rebase and fast forward. I'll say, just scroll down, say create this out. I'll say complete, and I'll say rebase and fast forward out here. I'll say complete merge. Okay, let's compare after the merge is pulled into, and after the merge is done. Let's look into this one. So let's see commits. Main branch has undergone a basic, so it is taking all the commits from your feature branches and also getting reflected out here. Dev1 has a squash, so it'll just take the history that is done on this particular branch. Dev2, do you see what it is doing right now? On Dev2, it looks similar to, let's say, a basic, but basic maintains a non-linear history. Rebase and fast forward maintains a linear history. At the same time, the pull request is not considered to be as a commit. Reason being, it's telling, okay, fine, whatever is the commit that was done on that particular feature, I'll just take it, put it forward out here. Reason being, rebase and fast forward as such. Finally, you have one last thing out here. So let's go back again into that particular branches, into this particular, let's say, policy. Let's look at this. Creates a linear history by replaying the source branch commits into the target without a merge commit. Merge commit here is telling, okay, fine, it's a pull request commit out here. So it's telling creates a linear history by replaying the source branch commits into the target. Finally, creates a semi-linear history by replaying the source branch commits into the target and then creating a merge commit. It is going to look very similar like basic merge. So let me come back into the pull requests. Let's create our final pull request from feature branch into dev3. I'll say final, say create, finally I'll say complete, and now I'll select what? Semi-linear merge. Say complete merge, and let's look at this. Now let's check this out. Let's go to comments. Let's come from again main. Again, this is a basic, no fast forward, wherein the commits from the feature is also taken. The commit from merge is also taken. Pull request is considered to be as a commit out here. Here in dev1, which is taken a squash, you have the initial commit, And finally, you have one commit coming from the merge. Pull request commit out here, but no feature branch commits are carried forward out here. It's a super clean commit history. There is no, let's say another history. Basically, it carries forward out there. And finally, let's come back here and say dev2, and in here dev2 undergone something we called rebase and fast forward, where merge is not displayed as a commit, it's a linear history. And finally, you have a semi-linear merge on dev3. Let's look at that. Same thing like the main branch out here. So in the main also, if you look at this, until here is the same, and in the dev3 it's the same as well. Not a lot of different out here. Same thing, it's putting three different commits, and then finally it's taking one particular merge commit out here. So it's almost the same, not almost the same, it's like very very same out there, with a merge no fast forward as such out there as such. Yes. Any questions till here? Anyone? Any questions till here? I'll take. Correct. Don't have to. Again, if I delete it, right? If I do a squash and delete the feature branch, will I not see the commit? Yes. Let's go there into our pull request. Let's do a completed pull request out here. Let's go to squash and delete the source branch. Source is no longer there. So if I go back into branches, have all these things. Now my point is, how do you now look at, let's say, your commit history? Very simple. Look at your history of the dev1. It's telling this is squash. I don't have to look at my feature branch to understand what are the developments. Click on the pull request. Go to commits. The pull request is carrying all the commits for you. So in the squash, you're not going to lose the commit history. It's still going to be there as a part of the pull request out there. So now you can say, okay, fine. It was coming from a branch called feature Kiran basic, branch not found because the branch got deleted. But you can say, okay, fine. If I want to understand what are the commits that are coming from this branch, these are the commits. Not only that, you can also say what were the updates that are done to my file. So yes, squash is very much helpful. When you delete it out, you still maintain the history, but you do not have to maintain the history on your main branch as such, which will make firstly your life very easy, because if a project is very big, right, there'll literally be a lot of commit histories, and it will become very difficult for you at a point to understand how the commit is actually coming, where is it getting merged and all that stuff. So it'll become a spider web at the end. You don't even know where it started, where it's ending and all that stuff. And if there is something which is wrong, something which is going wrong, it'll become very difficult for you to tell who committed it, how is it. I'll only look at the pull request. It'll become very difficult out there. That's the reason squash merge is best suited when you have a very big project. Merge fast forward or merge no fast forward is very best suited when you have a small project and you want to carry forward all the development history. You want to track everything at everything, let's say one page. So in small projects, I mean, let's say we've also worked in projects where there were not more than 5 or 6 developers. So what is the need of me going through all the investigation, understanding what is my pull request, then looking at my commit history out there? It'll help you maintain everything in one clean page out there as such. Yes. Any questions for you? Anyone? Any questions for you? So let's go back into our initial repository, which is the Android repository that we had. Let's put a policy out here telling I want to limit the merge types, and I only will allow basic and squash out here, which means now if I am a user and okay, let me go into my develop 10 and I am doing a pull request out here. Let's say feature str. I'll say create. I'll say edit this out. I'll say sample. Comment out. I'll say testing branch policy. Create a pull request, and let's create a pull request out here. And now if I set to autocomplete, you see what you have right now. You can restrict what a developer can do. Let's say your project only wants squash. You can say in the branch policy that, you know what, I will only allow squash. I cannot select this. Forbidden by policy. Now this is forbidden by policy. I cannot really select this out. So if you want to limit the merge types, you can go into your branches, say limit merge types out here, and say, you know what, these are the merge that I want to do. So again, there are two more things. Something called check for link work items, check for comment resolutions. What if I switch this on? Both are required. Check for link work items and check for this one. Let's do this. How will this help you? What will this help you with? Is this? See, there is a service called Azure Boards. Now, you are a developer who are working in a very big project. The point that I want to emphasize on here is that, see, you are either a developer or a DevOps engineer. You cannot just come here and change a file. Just like your own wish, you cannot do this. Someone has to tell you that, you know what, you have to change this specific file. This is the requirement that we have. Now go ahead and change this file out here. That someone is going to be a scrum master in an agile process. So scrum master is going to tell you that, you know what, I want you to do one particular change because the client is asking for this change. So please make that change and commit it. Now, how will he tell me? Will he just give me a phone call and tell, you know what, this is the change, go ahead and do this? Is it valid? Very difficult. Or better way, he'll send a WhatsApp message telling that please make this change. Is that okay? Okay, let's get into a little professional. Will he send me an email? He can send me an email, but again, see, over a period of time, you will be having a lot of emails. You'll lose track of time out here. That's the reason Scrum Masters use this something known as boards to assign work. So I'll say new, and in new item, I'll say make a change in the index.html file of the Android repository. Now, what I can do is I can go as a Scrum Master inside this. I can assign this to one of my developers. Let's say classes@devops@gmail.com is my developer. I assign this to him. Now classes@devops@gmail.com, this guy is going to get an email telling that, you know what, you have a work item assigned. Please go ahead, start working on that. So I will come as classes@devops. Look at this one. I'll say, okay, fine. They're asking me to change. And in the description, you can give additional description telling that the client is asking for this change. This is the change that you need to do. I'll say, okay, great, not a problem. And I, as a DevOps engineer, I have already implemented a policy telling what? Check for linked work items out here. Now, what the developer will do is that the developer will, kind of start working with the branch. So this is the default. He'll go ahead, create a feature. I'll say this is Kiran. I'll say something like sample change. I'll say create, and I'll go ahead and into that particular HTML file. Let's go into that particular pages, that particular HTML file out here. And in this particular HTML file, let's say I'm testing Sonar, and I'll add something like branch test, something like this. I'll say commit. I'll say changed the file as per the requirement. I'll say comment this out. Create a pull request into the develop branch. Now see, there is one thing that failed, which is telling that, you know what, work item has to be linked. Until and unless you don't link a work item, I will not allow your pull request to be merged. Which means that you're telling the developer that, you know what, you are only supposed to change if you are asked to. If you are not, then please don't touch the repository. So what I can do here to get rid of this error, scroll down, work items, add here, make this change. And now do you see that check is done? Not only that, come back, as now I am a Scrum Master. I want to understand what you are doing as a developer of my team or a DevOps engineer of my team. I want to understand what exactly that you're working on. So I'll say, okay, fine, this guy is working on this particular work item. Let's see what is that. Just scroll down. There is something called development. And here, what did you do? You created a pull request. Click on this one. Now I'll say, okay, fine. Oh, this guy has worked on something. There's a pull request that is going around. Okay, fine. I'm good with this. I don't have to come to you and ask you what are you working, what exactly that you're doing. because you cannot lie to me right now. Your pull request will have everything, and your work item will have every commit that you made. So depending upon this pull request, I can now say, okay, fine, this guy has made this particular change. I'm good with that. I can go ahead and approve this out. So this will help you, or this will help the reviewer, whoever is, let's say, technically commenting this out, to understand what are the changes, how the change came, who's asking for that particular change. Depending upon that, I can take the call of whether I want to approve this or not. Let me do one more thing. I have the pull request out here. What I do is that I come here into the files. The sonar is passed, everything is good, but I see that, you know what, this is not the right change. It was not supposed to be branch test. It was supposed to be test branch. It was supposed to be test branch out here. What I can do as a reviewer, I can say, okay, fine, you know what, I can add a comment telling that the change had to be test branch and not branch test. You have done a mistake out here. Sonar is not concerned about this one. Sonar is not concerned about whether you put a test branch test. No. Sonar is just telling you whether you are doing a proper, let's say, syntax and all that stuff. I'll say comment. As and when I do a comment, come back to your PR. Do you see what is it? Comments must be resolved. So this now gives you a very, let's say, interactive way in order to understand. Now, whenever you get this error, the developer is going to get an email telling that, okay, fine, you have one particular issue. Please resolve that out. Now I'll say, okay, fine. The lead doesn't want me to put it in that way. I'll come here into my, let's say, pages, sorry, not properties, pages, index.html, and I'll say this is test branch. I'll say changed the branch name as per the suggestion. I'll say here also I can link my work item. Everywhere I can link my work item out here. I'll say comment this out. And as and when I comment this out, give me a second. As and when I comment this out, let me go back again. Now do you see, it's not asking me to create a new pull request. The old pull request that I already had simply got updated. The old pull request which is alive simply got updated. Now the lead will come, they'll see, okay, fine, what is the change that you made right now? Okay, test branch, okay, changes according to this. Great. Let me go into my comment. Let me resolve my comment. Now go to the overview. All these things are done. This is how comments are put and comments are resolved out here. So we put a combination of all these things. Now if you look at the branch policy, you have what? You have at least one reviewer. You have check for link work items, comment resolution, limit merge types wherein I'm only allowing you to do a basic or a squash. If I'm a very big project, I'll also remove the squash. Sorry, I'll also remove the basic. I'll only put a squash out here, telling that, you know what, you should only come with a squash. Also, I have a build validation out here. Multiple policies, and also just scroll down, automatic, including, let's say, automatic reviewers as such out here as such. So this is something that I can put as a part of my branch policy as such out there. Yes. Any questions till here? Okay, let's take one question offline. If you delete the main branch, comments are gone, or okay, if you delete the main branch, comments are gone. Yes. See, if you delete the main branch, then yes, comments are gone. But your commit history will be tracked on one or the other branches out there. So you can merge your comments and, kind of play back around with that and so on and so forth. So, but yes, if you delete the main, the commits will be lost. Yes. Any more questions here? Correct. Mhm. Again, see, even if you do a small change, put a small comma, and then you commit it out, Git will track it out. Git will track everything. No matter what, Git is going to track everything. So you cannot control what Git shouldn't track out here. You cannot say that, because so Git is now tracking your entire file system. It's telling, even if you put a comma, I'll track this out. No, you cannot do that. That's not in your control. That's really not in your control out here. You can say again, You can stage your commits, but again if you let's say do a commit, you undo that. I mean you say okay fine, in this pull request I don't want that particular commit, the change will also not go. So you cannot have the change, meaning you cannot have such a kind of a scenario wherein you are doing the change but not the commit. You cannot do that. That's something that you cannot control. That's something which is controlled by the git system, and it should be like that. Because let's say tomorrow I do some kind of a change, I don't want my technical lead to know about it, I can remove that commit and put it in. That will cause more harm than good. So that's the reason git won't allow you to do that. Yes, any more questions here? What is our role here? Our role is to make sure that we create the repositories, create branches, protect branches. Very importantly, you'll have to work with the development team, telling what kind of a strategy they want, because all this is something that you're giving for a development team. You are not at the end of the day going and saying what did the developer do. You are not concerned about it. You are just going ahead giving the repository, giving the branches, protecting the branches, very importantly, configuring sonar if required, and also creating build pipelines, making sure that the build pipelines are triggering smoothly. If there is an issue, addressing those issues out there. If there are any failures on the build pipeline, address those failures out there, and also maintain the artifacts, also maintain the versions of the artifacts out here. The developer will have the right to create the branch. He'll also have the right to delete the branch, but he will not have the right to go ahead and change the branch policy. The reason being, the developer might not belong to the administrator group. As a developer, I want him to be sitting inside, like such something like a contributor group out there. So, for example, if you go in there, let's look at my permissions, or let's look at the permissions that I do have. And see, I have, let's see, I am an administrator out here. Let's do that. Here's DevOps line team, session DevOps. I'm the administrator out here. If my role gets changed to a contributor, I won't be able to, let's say, go ahead, control what is my branch policy and all that stuff. Reason being, the permissions won't allow me to do that. Let's say project administrators, I am a member of project administrator out here, and I am allowed to delete, I'm allowed to, let's say, change, I'm allowed to, let's say, go ahead, all these things out here. But as someone like a contributor, you're not allowed to go ahead and, let's say, do a lot of things. There is a lot of, let's say, policy that is, let's say, not allowed to you. So you're not allowed to do a lot of things out here. So that's the reason you won't be able to, as a developer, go ahead and control what is the branch policy that you have. Also, if you go on a particular branch, or if you go on a particular branch or a repository, if I'm not sure, if I'm not wrong, let's look at repositories, and let's look at the Android repository, and let's look at security of a repository. In the security of a repository, you can say what your contributors can do. Can they bypass the pull request? Can they go ahead create a branch? Allowed. Can they edit policies? Deny. You can say you can create a branch, yes, but you cannot edit a policy. This is something that you cannot do. So what now a developer will, or now no, what now will happen is that if you are a part of this particular contributor group, and if you come down here and look at the branches out there and try to, let's say, edit some policies and all that stuff, everything will be grayed out. You cannot do anything. You can just read the policy. That's something that we control. Yes, any more questions here? Anyone? Any questions that I can take? Okay, so that's it from mine, guys. Please try this out, because until and unless you try what are the commits and how the commits are going, so please create 4 or 5 branches, create one feature, merge it, let's say, into different branches by using different commit, let's say, styles out there. Then you'll be able to understand what kind of a commit history that you're getting, and also try out all the branch policies that you have. Try out all the branch policy that you have, and see how they work together, and what will happen if you put a comment, what will happen if you don't put a work item in place, and all that stuff. Thank you and have a good day ahead. Thanks, guys.